We are not hurt by love, but by the inability of others to love. Erich Fromm. How many nights have you spent staring at your phone, waiting for a message that never came? How many times have you scrolled back through old conversations, desperately trying to decode them, asking yourself, what did I do wrong? The deepest pain isn't their silence, it's the way you end up feeling like a beggar for love, chasing while they keep pulling away. And then the self-doubt creeps in. Am I too much? Too needy? Too sensitive? But stop right there. Because the truth is, this pain is not your fault. If you've ever loved an avoidant partner, you know the brutal cycle. One day they're close, warm, giving you hope, and the next they disappear, shut down, leaving you drowning in confusion. The harder you love, the farther they run. But here's the secret most people never hear. You cannot make an avoidant change just by loving them harder. No amount of texting, no sacrifice, no just be more patient will magically wake them up. So what actually makes an avoidant person stop running, face themselves, and finally say, I need to change? The answer may surprise you, and once you understand it, not only will you stop blaming yourself, but you'll also reclaim your freedom in love. Let's step into that journey together. When you enter a relationship with an avoidant partner, you often find yourself trapped in an invisible loop, a cycle where the harder you try, the more of yourself you lose. Think back for a moment. The last time you were with someone avoidant, how did you feel? At first, things were sweet. They opened up just enough for you to believe the relationship had potential. Then suddenly, like a door slamming shut, they went cold, silent, withdrawn. And you, instead of pausing, jumped into pursuit. You texted more, tried harder to prove you were worthy of love, excused their silence with endless reasons. Maybe they're busy, maybe they're tired, maybe I said something wrong. But the more you chased, the further they retreated. This is the cruel paradox of loving an avoidant. The more you give, the less you receive. The closer you get, the further they move away. And what's the outcome of this unconscious game? On one side, you, with your anxious, longing heart, spiral into confusion, self-doubt, and pain. On the other side, they, the avoidant, raise their walls higher, reinforcing the belief that closeness equals danger. Nobody truly wins, and both remain stuck in a loop of suffering. This isn't just anecdotal, it's well documented in attachment research. In Attached, 2010, Amir Levine and Rachel Heller describe this dynamic clearly. Avoidant individuals often grow up in environments where emotional needs were ignored, dismissed, or inconsistently met. To survive, they learn to switch off feelings, sending themselves an internal message. Closeness is dangerous. Expressing needs is weakness. Wanting love only leads to pain. That's why, though they appear strong, independent, even indifferent, deep down they still long for connection. The problem is that their fear of being consumed, trapped, or losing freedom overwhelms that longing. So, when you move closer, they don't feel your love, they feel threat. When you send a caring message, their brain interprets it as danger. I'm about to be controlled. Ironically, the very moment you try to reassure them with more love, they feel even more suffocated. This creates the perfect negative feedback loop. Your anxiety triggers their avoidance, and their avoidance fuels your anxiety. From your perspective, especially if you lean anxious or simply want stability, this loop can feel disorienting. You may believe that if you just love harder, sacrifice more, or wait longer, they'll eventually see your worth and change. But the reality is the opposite. The more you sacrifice, the more you reinforce the cycle, the more you teach them that they can run and you will still be there waiting. In other words, you're not saving them, you're unintentionally enabling their fear. From the avoidance perspective, the paradox is equally painful. They are not as emotionless as they appear. Neuroscience studies show that avoidance nervous systems react strongly both to closeness and to the fear of losing autonomy. Their hearts race when they are loved, but their brains instantly activate defense, cut off, detach, withdraw. And by withdrawing, they lose the very thing they secretly crave: safe, secure love. If you look closely, the cycle is like a dance out of sync. You step forward, they step back. The more you chase, the more off-beat the rhythm becomes. Only when one partner breaks the pattern can the cycle stop. This is not easy, since both are being driven by unconscious strategies rooted in childhood. but recognizing the loop is the first step toward freedom. And here's the hard truth. You cannot break this cycle by loving more. You cannot heal their fear by making yourself smaller, easier, less needy. Because when you do that, you actually confirm their false belief. Real closeness is dangerous. I'm right to withdraw. The only way to break the loop is to stand firm, hold your boundaries, and refuse to keep dancing to the same broken rhythm. If in the previous section we saw the painful cycle of avoidant love, the more you chase, the further they withdraw, then the next question, the one that keeps millions awake at night, is, so when do they actually change? When does an avoidant stop running and finally learn to love fully? The answer is brief, but harsh. Only when they experience a wake-up call powerful enough to break through their avoidance. It's not a gentle nudge, not well-meaning advice, and certainly not your unconditional love. It's an experience that shakes them to their core, shattering the world they've carefully built, forcing them to stop and stare into the mirror. Interestingly, these wake-up calls often come from three main sources: meeting someone strong enough not to play the avoidant game, losing a true love and living with regret, or having their own body and mind revolt against them. Each strikes like a bell, but with a different tone. Let's walk through three real stories, three distinct turning points, to see what truly compels an avoidant to grow. The first is when they meet a person strong enough to resist their patterns. Imagine a man who's used to being chased, forgiven, indulged. He holds the power, carries the charm, and has never truly been held accountable. Then one day, he meets a woman who's different. She refuses to enter the same cycle. She doesn't beg, doesn't over-explain, doesn't tolerate disrespect. Instead, she stands tall in her boundaries. I won't chase you. Either you grow up or you lose me forever. That was a shock to his system, a mirror he couldn't ignore. For the first time, he realized love doesn't equal endless forgiveness. Meeting someone grounded enough to break the pattern can jolt avoidants into facing what they stand to lose if they don't change. The second wake-up call is losing a true love and feeling the weight of regret. Many avoidants only realize value when it's too late. They play the hot and cold game, present today, absent tomorrow. But eventually, they meet someone who truly sees them, who loves them genuinely, and instead of cherishing it, they sabotage. When that person finally leaves without turning back, without another chance, that's when the shock lands. At first, they feel relief. Finally, I'm free again. But weeks turn to months. Silence grows heavier. Memories haunt. Emptiness gnaws. They realize they've lost something real. Psychology shows that regret, especially tied to irreversible loss, can be one of the strongest motivators for behavior change. For avoidants, regret can become their harshest teacher, pushing them into therapy, forcing them to confront intimacy fears, and slowly relearn how to love. Finally, sometimes the wake-up call doesn't come from anyone else or from external loss, but from their own body and mind breaking down. An avoidant friend may spend years dismissing love, mocking intimacy, denying feelings, but the body doesn't lie. Suppressed emotions pile up into anxiety, sleepless nights, panic attacks. Buried memories surface as nightmares and exhaustion. At some point, the nervous system rebels, and avoidance is no longer an option. It's an internal collapse, a mutiny of the subconscious. Only then do some avoidants seek therapy, finally allowing themselves to feel the grief they've long denied. For some, this becomes the beginning of their deepest transformation because there is no other path left but healing. These three stories differ in form, but share the same essence. Real change only happens when a force powerful enough breaks the old cycle. Whether it's a person, a loss, or their own body's rebellion, all these wake-up calls push avoidants into a corner where running is no longer possible. They must choose either grow or lose everything. And it is in that moment, and only then, that true maturity begins. Story 1. The player becomes a devoted father. In his younger days, he was the archetype of a city player, always appearing with a half-smile, sharp eyes, and an almost arrogant confidence. Wherever he went, people knew him. In every bar, someone waved. On social media, he was the center of stories and photos. Women were drawn to him like bees to honey. They adored him, forgave him, sacrificed for him, and he grew used to being indulged. Friends would half-jokingly warn, "Don't fall for him, he only loves himself." And it was true. He had never had to take responsibility for anyone's heart. When a romance ended, a few charming lines and a seductive look were enough to bring someone new into his orbit. He lived in a world where he was always the prize, where women fought to hold on to him, and that only fueled his arrogance. But that world shattered the day he met her, a woman unlike anyone he'd known. The first time they spoke, he teased, "Do you know how dangerous I am? I can make you think about me for a week with just one text." She looked him dead in the eyes, neither laughing nor blushing, and replied simply, "Then don't text. I don't play games." He froze. For the first time, his old tricks didn't work. No adoring look, no chasing, just a clear boundary. And the more he got to know her, the more he realized. She knew all about him, his reputation, his past, his lifestyle, but she wasn't impressed. On the contrary, she was strong, direct, and unwilling to tolerate disrespect. Once, after he tried his usual disappearing act to make her miss him, she sent only one message: "I don't have time for someone who can't be clear. If you disappear again, don't come back." That sentence hit him like a slap across the ego. For the first time, control slipped from his hands. If he wanted her, he had to change. If not, he would lose her forever. And what unsettled him most was this: he truly didn't want to lose her. So he began to try something new: patience, honesty, effort. No more games, no more unexplained absences. He learned to listen, to show up, to be present. And then came the second, even bigger shock. He became a father. The moment he held his child for the first time, he whispered silently to himself, "I can't keep living the way I did." All his life, he had been running. But that moment, those tiny eyes looking up at him as though he was the whole world, awakened a responsibility he had never felt before. He realized that real love wasn't a game of power, but commitment, presence, and safety given to others. From a man who once avoided, who thrived on games of pursuit and retreat, he transformed into a devoted partner, a husband who values, a father who loves. Old friends were stunned to see him now, no longer the infamous player, but an ordinary man full of strength and love. The lesson is crystal clear. You don't change an avoidant by loving them more, texting more, or forgiving more. The only thing that changes the game is when you hold your boundaries, when you stand firm, when you refuse to play in the chaos. You force them to face themselves, and only then do they have the chance to truly grow. Story 2. The man who lost his true love. He was born into a family where affection was scarce, where words of love were considered a luxury. From childhood, he learned to fend for himself, to never ask, to never rely. As he grew, he wore the mask of independence, strong, carefree, needing no one. But deep down, he was always halfway, half longing for love, half terrified of it. His past relationships all followed the same pattern: months of passion, weeks of withdrawal, then quiet disappearance, until he met her. She was unlike anyone before. She didn't just love him for his charm or witty lines. She saw the real him, fragile, defensive, and lonely, even when he denied it. With her, he didn't have to pretend. She trusted him, waited for him, and gave him a kind of love he had never known. But he didn't know how to receive it. Each time she moved closer, he stepped back. Every time she asked for certainty, he gave vague promises. And then he made his worst mistake. He betrayed her. Not because he didn't care, but because he was terrified of depending on someone. In that moment, he convinced himself that running would feel safer. The day she found out, she didn't cry, didn't plead. She simply looked at him for a long moment and said, "You don't even realize what you've just lost. But I do, and I'm not coming back." The door closed, and this time, no one waited outside. At first, he sighed with relief, as always. The familiar sense of freedom washed over him. He told himself, "It's fine, I'll find someone else." But as weeks turned into months, the apartment grew suffocatingly quiet. No more goodnight texts, no more patient eyes, no more dinners waiting on the table. The silence became an echo in his mind, louder and louder, haunting him. Months later, he began to dream of her dreams repeating over and over, where she smiled at him, then turned and walked away. He woke up in panic, chest hollow. That's when it hit him. I've lost the only person who truly loved me. And that truth became a wound that never healed. He spiraled downward, drinking more, chasing fleeting flings, but nothing filled the void. Until one night, staring in the mirror, he saw a worn-out face and bloodshot eyes. He couldn't live like this anymore. He sought therapy, and for the first time, he admitted his deepest fears. Fear of intimacy, fear of unworthiness, fear that letting someone too close would consume him. The process was hard, even painful. But slowly, he learned to open up. He learned responsibility, honesty, how to stay when he wanted to run. Gradually, he was no longer the half-hearted man he once was. The lesson is bitter, but profound. Sometimes only true loss has the power to wake an avoidant. But here's the key: you cannot stay, hoping your love will be that wake-up call. It is the act of leaving, the firm boundary of no more chances, that gives them the possibility to face themselves and choose to grow. Story 3. The avoidant friend and the anxiety that wrecks the body. My close friend, a brilliant, lively woman admired by many, was, in love, the perfect example of avoidance. She could talk about work, travel, or any topic with wit and sparkle. But mention the word love, and her eyes would dart away. Whenever I teased, "I love you, you know," she'd smirk and reply, yeah, no need to say it." To her, those 3 words were like an allergy, something to avoid at all costs. In her relationships, she never stood still. Things began passionately, romantically, but as soon as her partner asked for commitment, she felt suffocated. The script repeated, cutting off contact, disappearing without explanation, then leaping into another fling to fill the void. Friends would shake their heads. She's running a marathon without knowing where the finish line is. Then one day, her body rebelled. At first, just a few sleepless nights, a few random palpitations. She thought, must be work stress. But it grew worse. Her heart raced wildly at midnight. Sweat poured down her skin. Her chest felt crushed. Once, she called me at 3 a.m., trembling. "I think I'm dying. I can't breathe. My heart's going to explode." I rushed her to the hospital, but the doctors only shrugged. Her heart was fine, her lungs clear. The verdict: anxiety disorder. That's when the real drama began. She couldn't work as before, couldn't sleep, couldn't pretend anymore. Her body became a traitor, relentlessly demanding that something buried deep within be faced. For the first time, she sought therapy. And in those sessions, the truth surfaced. Behind the mask of confidence and laughter was a vault of guilt, loss, and unprocessed pain. She spoke of her college love she had coldly destroyed, of the gentle boy who loved her deeply, but was pushed away simply because he was too genuine. She wept, recalling the times she vanished without explanation, leaving others bewildered. Memories she once brushed off as no big deal now cut into her like knives. One evening after therapy, she called me, voice breaking. "I can't believe how many people I've hurt. I thought I was harmless, just living authentically, but I was running and leaving wounds behind." For the first time, I saw her stripped of her sarcasm, no longer avoiding, but truly facing herself. And then, change began. Not instantly, not overnight, but step by step. She learned to sit with her emotions instead of fleeing, learned to admit that she, too, needed love and closeness, instead of denying it. The anxiety attacks didn't vanish, but they were no longer enemies. They became alarm bells whenever she tried to run from herself again. The lesson from this story is clear. Sometimes the wake-up call doesn't come from someone else, or from an external loss. It comes from within, from the body and mind themselves, when buried truths finally erupt, shattering the avoidant shell. You can run from love, you can dodge commitment, but you cannot outrun yourself. And when your body speaks, you must choose. Keep collapsing, or rise and begin the work of healing. The 3 stories: the player who met a woman strong enough to stand firm, the man who lost his one true love, and the friend whose own body turned against her, seem very different at first glance. One feels romantic, another tragic, the last almost suffocatingly dramatic. Yet, when you connect them, a clear common thread emerges. Avoidants only change when they are forced to face themselves, when there is no road left to run down. In the first story, what changed him wasn't someone's endless love, but the unshakable boundaries of the woman he met. She refused to play the old game, refused to beg, refused to be taken advantage of. Her strength was a mirror that showed him what he would lose if he didn't grow up. And then fatherhood doubled the impact, forcing him to accept that the old life was over. From a man of avoidance, he had no choice but to become a man capable of love. In the second story, no one stayed to change him. In fact, It was the opposite. The woman left, and that act created the shock he needed. Losing true love, he initially felt free. But as silence grew louder, regret gnawed at him. That irreversible loss forced him to ask, why do I always destroy what matters most? Therapy followed not because love saved him, but because pain demanded he change. In the third story, the wake-up call came not from others but from within. Years of avoidance built like a ticking bomb. When it exploded, anxiety attacks, sleepless nights, and panic left her no choice. The body itself became the alarm, declaring, enough, face this or break. And so, for the first time, she entered therapy, finally confronting the pain she had long dismissed with sarcasm. Across all three, the truth is unmistakable. Change doesn't come from external force, but from an inner choice made when the old patterns collapse. None of them transformed because someone stayed and loved them enough. On the contrary, it was when someone refused to play, when someone walked away, when their own body shut down, that's when the crossroads appeared. This carries a crucial message for anyone loving and avoidant. We often think, if I'm just more patient, more loving, more selfless, they'll change. But in reality, blind patience only fuels the cycle. By staying regardless of the hurt, you're telling them, no matter how far you run, I'll still be here. And if nothing forces them to reflect, they have no reason to change. So what's the common thread across these three stories? First, avoidants change only when the familiar loop is broken. Something must shake their defenses, a strong partner, a painful loss, or their own body's rebellion. Second, change cannot be given from outside. You cannot love them into becoming someone else. You can only hold your boundaries, walk away when needed, and focus on yourself. Third, change, if it happens, always begins within. They must choose the healing journey themselves, not because someone pushed them, but because they see no other way forward. And here lies the liberating truth. Their healing is never your responsibility. Your only responsibility is yourself to know your worth, to hold your boundaries, to recognize when it's time to stop. Because when you do, you both protect your own heart and create the conditions where change might occur if they choose it. If they grow, it's because they wanted to. If they don't, you've saved yourself years of pain, and that, ultimately, is the real victory. So what does this mean for you, the one loving and avoidant? It means stop. Stop trying to fix them. You cannot heal wounds rooted in years of childhood pain with your texts, your patience, or your endless waiting. It is not your job. Your job is to hold your boundaries, protect your worth, and never lower your standards just to keep someone. If they grow, if they change, it will be because they chose to, not because you endured long enough. And if they leave, that is not a loss. It is protection life, freeing you from a relationship where you had to beg for scraps of affection. It is the space needed for someone truly ready, someone capable of safe and consistent love, to enter your life. The important truth to remember is this: you are not too much. You are not enough. You are simply loving someone who is not ready. And the person worthy of you will never make you doubt your own value, never make you beg for love. In the renowned book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, the authors note that securely attached people never make you feel like you have to fight for their love. Instead, they bring stability, certainty, and emotional safety. This is what you should aim for. True freedom isn't pulling an avoidant back into your arms. It's finding peace with someone who can love you fully. So what is the solution for you? Start with yourself. Build inner security, know your needs and desires in love, and give yourself permission to demand them. Hold your boundaries. Refuse to accept silence, disappearing acts, or crumbs of affection. Focus on your own healing. If you lean anxious, work on the fear of abandonment and the "I'm not enough" belief, rather than trying to fill it with someone else. Be brave enough to walk away. Leaving is not failure, it's self-protection, a declaration that I deserve more. Above all, remember, healthy love doesn't make you chase, doesn't make you question, doesn't make you afraid. It makes you feel calm, seen, and cherished, and you are absolutely worthy of that. And now, after walking through the three stories and their painful lessons, I want to leave you with one clear message. Love was never meant to be built on fear or endless waiting. If you are loving and avoidant, remember that their change is not in your hands. You cannot love them enough to erase their childhood. You cannot sacrifice enough to heal wounds they refuse to face. And you don't need to endure one more day just to prove your worth. What you can do and what you must do is choose yourself. Choose to hold your boundaries. Choose not to accept half love. Choose a life where you never beg for affection. Choose a love that brings peace instead of torment. Because the truth is, if they want to change, they will choose it themselves. If they don't, you've already saved yourself. Either way, you win. And let me remind you, you are not too much. You are not enough. You are simply loving the wrong person at the wrong time. The right person will never make you doubt your worth. They will see you, value you, and choose you clearly, consistently, and safely. See the emptiness after letting go as a gift, because it is in that space that you can rebuild yourself, heal, and create room for the love you truly deserve. So let me leave you with this question. If tomorrow I woke up and loved myself enough not to settle for less than I deserve, how would my life change? The answer is already in your hands. And maybe, just maybe, today is the day you begin living as someone who knows their true worth.